digital terrestrial television. All of our televisions are going to be switching from analog to the digital platform. Well, by October this year, the UK will have ended its process and migrated fully to the digital platform. And to tell us a little bit more about that process and perhaps lessons that can be learned for South Africa, I'm now joined by David Hemingway, who's a senior spectrum manager at one of my old stomping grounds, the BBC. David, great to have you on the program.
Morning, Peter. Thanks for having me.
All right, so it's been 4 years in the making, and by October you're nearly going to be done. Tell us about the process of migrating.
Well, the 4 years is just the end. We started the process about 10 years ago.
Wow.
We started planning frequencies and platforms and multiplexes and all these technical things that you need to get right about 10 years ago. The government then set a framework timetable to complete switchover by the end of 2012, and then handed over to the broadcasters and the regulators to work through the process in detail, so that by now, as I say, we've just finished migrating London a few weeks ago, and by the end of October we'll have finished the whole of the UK.
All right, so what were the big milestones you would say, and particularly I would guess public participation in this process that we in South Africa need to take cognizance of?
There was a whole process. I mean, a lot of money was spent on the public messaging, the marketing, and the communications. So a whole body was set up called Digital UK, whose job was to make sure that everybody knew switchover was coming, to give them information about how to get digital television, and then on the night of switchover to offer technical guidance and advice on retuning TVs, getting set-top boxes, that sort of thing. The other thing that we did, we put a lot of money into, was making sure that the elderly and the vulnerable members of society came along with the process. So there was a help scheme put in place which provided set-top boxes to the elderly and the vulnerable, and assisted them through the process as well. Those two factors between them being key to making switchover a success in the UK.
All right, now you're a technical person, but in simple terms, so that people at home can understand, what is it that digital can do that analog can't, and why we need to migrate?
Digital television has two big advantages. It uses much less spectrum to give you the channels that you currently get. You can get the existing channels into much less frequency space. That means that you can either have more channels and the choice can increase, or you can give up frequencies for other technologies like mobile broadband and things like that, or you can do both.
Right.
And that's the great thing about digital. You can get far more channels and release frequencies for other uses, so everybody wins.
And that's a big thing for particularly this continent, isn't it?
It is, yes. That's the whole thing about this ICT Indaba is about leveraging digital dividends from things like digital migration, television, to make mobile broadband more accessible.
How have you seen it change for the ordinary consumer, the ordinary viewer in the UK?
The ordinary viewer in the UK 10 years ago had 4 channels available to him. Now they have a choice of 50.
Yeah.
And they've got used, that's just become part of their life. They used to say, oh, we can't get such and such a program because it's not on one of the channels we can get on analog. Now everyone has access to all the BBC channels. We have a network of 8 TV channels now from BBC.
Yeah.
The commercial operators have similar networks of channels, and everyone has access to all of those, and that makes a multi-channel world a reality for everybody. And it's all for free.
Now the whole world has to migrate, doesn't it? What's the cut-off date again?
The cut-off date for most countries is 2015. Some countries in Africa have got an extension, 2020.
Right.
But again, that's subject to local negotiations. And if a group of countries decide to delay it and they all agree with each other, then their international obligations say they can together delay.
All right, so quite a process ahead of us, and it looks like. But thanks very much for sharing your thoughts with us this day.
Thank you, pleasure.
Okay, so that was David Hemingway, who's the Senior Spectrum Manager at the BBC, telling us about their own migration process. Well,